I didn't expect you to want to debate me, actually.
Yeah, I'm always down for this. I love doing this. A lot of people just aren't willing to do it. But
Hmm.
I enjoy doing it. I think it's good for people with opposing views on things to be able to have a conversation. A lot of times, people, especially in this community, seem to just like hurl insults at each other, and it's just like
True.
super. It's just super. Just yeah, it's just not productive. Um,
I agree.
but yeah, so the biggest thing that I'm failing to understand with your logic about like unwritten rules in games and in social spaces and people you believe I think that people should follow them so that they can be socially aware of other people and their feelings and such, but like again my issue is how is one to be aware of all the written rules? How many like what dictates what unwritten rules should or shouldn't be followed? Like where does it end with when in terms of following your what you call unwritten rules in like Dead by Daylight?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question because I believe like gaming has this like social space in it as well, because people want to game with their own emotions as well. Like you cannot be a completely different person from outside the game or inside the game, especially nowadays when gaming is like much more prominent than it was before. So there's like a little bit of social rules that keep things competitive yet respectful to each other. And that's one thing that I think Dead by Daylight uh, is kind of like known for, to be like in a bad space, because it gives you this this feeling sometimes that you're actually like being bullied by the people that you're going against, because it's like a group thing. And I know that people might have this different take on that, but things like camping or slugging, teabagging, flashlight clicking could feel like bullying to me as a person, especially if you're like in this situation where you know you're not better than them and they are still continuing to like do these things. And I don't think this is like rare behavior. I actually think this happens quite a bit, and for me personally, it can definitely hurt my feelings as well. I'm not saying like every game is like this, especially since I don't have that many hours in the game. I got like 500 in them, and yeah, I would. Yeah, that's kind of the take that I have.
Right. So yeah, again, my I guess my main thing is you talk about the unwritten rules or the unwritten expectation in the social space, in the gaming space of let's just keep it in DBD for now because that's like obviously what we're talking about is like where does one draw the line? Like you mentioned camping, tunneling, slugging, those things can make people feel like they're being bullied on the killer side, getting stunned, clicking flash or sorry, teabagging. Those things can feel like bullying, but when it comes to the way I see it is when it comes to unwritten rules or people's feelings in general is people perceive everything in different ways. So one person could perceive something as bullying and someone else may not perceive it as bullying. Like some people perceive a teabag as saying hello, some people perceive it as toxic. Some people perceive camping and tunneling as an efficient strategy to win. Some people perceive it as tunneling not allowing you to play the game as survivor. Um, some people perceive going for flashlight saves or blast mines or head-ons. Some people perceive that as just goofing around. You're not really trying to win. You're going to die anyway. Haha. And then some people perceive it as they're being bullied. So it's all about that perception. And it seems like we're only focusing on the negative and using that to implement these quote unwritten rules. But where does it end? Like if we're only taking people's negative feelings towards what's happening to them in the game, theoretically couldn't like the unwritten rules just never end? Like if somebody has a negative experience with something in the game and they don't like that happening to them, they don't like the way that feels, then and that felt like maybe they were being bullied or it hurt their feelings, could they not just be like, okay, I don't that shouldn't happen anymore in this game and that's my unwritten rule? Like where do we draw a line?
Yeah, I think because of its emotions are like very broad. It's a very broad spectrum, and I think for everyone they can be different. Like I know you from your videos to be on point about the things you say, the same as other Dead by Daylight YouTubers like maybe Hans or what does that other man called, like True Talent. They just kind of like say what it is, and that's the intent of what the game should be, right? But I do feel like that it also like pushes away this narrative that you cannot have like these social feelings in a game that maybe should also be respected to a certain extent. The same as that you say, like, you don't know the intent to like the end of the game where you say that you don't know if it's like bullying, yes or no. But I feel like if things like happen continuously and you see the patterns, I think it can create this shtick that even if you have like a lot of hours in the game, you can differentiate between people wanting to play with you, like teabagging and having like that engagement with each other, or doing it out of spite because the person that you're facing is definitely not at your skill level. And I feel like a lot of Dead by Daylight players, especially like if they are in Swifts, will get angry about previous games where they maybe got slugged or camped, and then they also reactively push that onto the next killer that might not even be anywhere near close that experience level, and then they yeah, that killer faces all of the repercussions from the way the game is designed as on him. Like for me, example, I don't have a ton of hours, but sometimes I just get spun or run around like crazy, like super optimally, and I'm like legit standing still, and I just cannot do anything, and they're like uh, uh, crouching or clicking or having these like high level tags that I can appreciate if it's used correctly, but as well, it also feels like it's a bit personal sometimes.
All right. So again, my main question was like, where do we draw a line in terms
Hmm.
of, because again, we're talking about these feelings and using like feelings and emotions and using those negative emotions to create unwritten rules to prevent those negative feelings from happening again based on someone's negative experience in the game. So I think that is an incredibly like dangerous way to go about creating a gaming space, because you're going to be limiting so much, and to me it feels like there is no line to be drawn, because again, people's negative experience is subjective. So it's like you said, you know, you might have, or it's like I said rather, you might have a negative experience, but someone else dealing with the same thing might have a positive experience or might not be negatively affected, or somebody might be negatively affected by something much more minor than somebody else. So how do you draw a line, or how do you determine what is or isn't an unwritten rule, or what is or isn't bullying in that sense? Like, because
Hmm.
I watch people like One Pump Willie, you know, who goes for crazy win streaks on Sadako or Unknown or all these killers, and One Pump Willie, if you know him or if other people in chat know him, he's such a chill, awesome dude. Really one of the most chill DBD streamers I've ever watched. But he goes for these win streaks, and I mean, he will hardcore camp, tunnel, slug at 5 gens to get these win streaks. I think his Unknown streak the last time I looked at was over 100 wins in a row. And like, this is the like most chill, nice guy ever. And so again, what are we doing? Like, is he like, the question is like, I just want a yes or no from this. Like, is he a bully?
Um,
Like, and I don't like, and I mean this respectfully. I don't want a long, fleshed out, like, kind of non-answer. I want an answer, because I would say the majority of Survivor players throughout the years would consider hardcore camping, tunneling, slugging at 5 gens to be very frowned upon in as far as unwritten rules go. That's like one of the biggest unwritten rules of Dead by Daylight, is you don't do that. So is somebody like One Pump Willie a bully for playing this way to further his win streaks? I just want a yes or no.
I don't really have enough. I didn't really see One Pump really too much. I know who he is, but from what I would presume, if he's like optimally using everything uh, that he has against like a whole party, I would assume that some games people would have found that he was bullying them, and that's just my take.
Right, but what I'm saying is like they may have perceived that he was bullying them because they didn't enjoy his playstyle, but does that inherently make him a bully? Is he a bully?
No, not inherently. It didn't make him a bully.
Okay, well that's kind of my thing is like it's not like people aren't allowed to have feelings or aren't allowed to feel frustrated. My issue is going outside of the game or it's like, for example, the video that I made with Joey where we were
Hmm.
playing and stuff. People calling him an insufferable, toxic asshole bully, like in real life, because of
Yeah.
him goofing around. Like that's what I'm talking about, is trying to differentiate real life and the game. Like you're saying, some people might perceive One Pump Willie as a bully, but you don't necessarily think he is. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm trying to figure out is like what makes you a bully versus what makes someone just have the perception you are, but you aren't actually a bully.
Was that video with Joey that you did? Was that where you played like survivors and you did like these builds where you had like head on and that type of stuff? Was it
Yes.
about that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. 'Cause I didn't see that.
Okay.
Uh, um, yeah. Of course, definitely like against saying that type of stuff to people like in real life. It doesn't help to fight fire with fire at all. I don't think that's anywhere near good to do or respectful. And I think that people that do that don't have a play should not have a place to talk about that, especially not for someone like Joey. Because right now for me in the same situation, I if there's a lot of people saying that type of stuff about you, it can definitely feel that is definitely personal, and that it definitely hurts your feelings. And you know him. I don't know who he is, but you say he's a good guy, and you know him for a long time. So
Well,
I
that's
can
I
also
think
see
that's
how that hurts your feelings as well.
well, I just think I think that's the core issue, right? Like you don't know
Mhm.
Joey. None of these other people in the comments know Joey, but they see the way that he played a video game, and that was enough for them to determine that he is a toxic, insufferable asshole who shouldn't play the game anymore, or who is, he's the reason killers are uninstalling all kinds of stuff. And like they have no idea, they don't know who he is. He's such a great, freaking awesome guy. He's a dad. He's
Mhm.
got 3 kids. He's a sweetheart. But people have seen his gameplay and have decided that that is enough to determine that he's a toxic, insufferable bully. And I think that that is just so unbelievably. It's. I think
Yeah, it
it's.
feels unfair. It feels unfair.
It
It
just
feels
feels
unjustified.
not. I wouldn't even say unfair, unjustified. Yes, but to me, it's just silly. Because like I mean, of course, when you get frustrated in a game, those feelings are valid. I get frustrated all the time and I rage all the time, but like I think it just needs to stay in the game. And I think that the more that we normalize creating unwritten rules to dictate how people should play, to tiptoe
Mhm.
around how other people feel, it's just we don't know where the line is, and I still haven't figured that out in this conversation. Where the line is, like
I
how you.
think. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Um, I think like about what you said about the social line that we draw. I think I do kind of have like this incentive that I can tell what it is. In my opinion, I think it's like we draw the line at a point where like behavior structurally evokes like powerlessness, humiliation, exclusion, and therefore isn't like it doesn't feel like you're simply losing, but it's like an experience of like that you're being dominated unfairly. That is like
Ha-
that, and that line isn't like objective, I feel,
are you
but it's collectively like everybody like feels that everybody knows what it feels like.
are you familiar with Epidemi?
No, not
Mm.
not sure. No.
Okay, so I made a streamer of the month video. It was the one before I made of Joey, where basically that series is I highlight a streamer who I think is awesome and deserves more recognition. And this
Hmm.
is what I think is so interesting, is that Epidemi's whole thing is he plays Bubba and he uses a build, Infectious Fright. He uses the Skull Merchant perk that slows you down. The name of it is escaping me at the time, but he basically uses a bunch of perks and add-ons where he can down an entire team with one chainsaw sweep, because his charges reset and he knows where the next survivor is, and he just mows them all down, and he calls it Bubba goes where Bubba pleases. And people love it. It's hilarious. It's great. And I find it interesting that all of these killer mains who are crying in my comments about killers being bullied and killers not having fun, none of them said a word when it was Epidemi the month before. No, everybody thought it was hilarious. Epidemi's the GOAT. Epidemi's awesome. Good for Epidemi. Yo, he's so awesome. None of them gave a shit about the Survivor's fun and all the matches Epidemi plays. And you know what? They shouldn't, because Epidemi's hilarious and those clips are hilarious. But then, boom, as soon as I flip it to the other side, as soon as I go to Survivor and do something that the killer may or may not think is fun, maybe they do, maybe they don't. As soon as we do that, now the killer mains all of a sudden, they turn the heat up and they're mad, and now it's toxic bullying. And that to me is just, I can't understand that, because it's a giant double standard.
Mm. Yeah, it
Like,
definitely.
based on what I told you just now, do you think Epidemi's a bully? If he uses that build as Bubba, where he's trying to, he goes for clips where he just can down an entire team with one chainsaw sweep and the game's over. Do you think he's a bully?
No, I don't think that's bullying. I think that's like earned presence, in my opinion. It's like you earn that completely, because like what I'm talking about is like when actions feel like mockery and not mastery. That's like where I think a lot of people get this like feelings, like me too, where it kind of differentiate. I feel like what you said about I don't know, Epidemi, that it feels like it's a mastery. If I was playing like as a Swift or just as a 4-man, and one Bubba can like take down almost all of us in one whole swoop, that just feels impressive to me. That feels like, wow, this guy may had like this much mastery over a killer that he could do this in like one whole go.
And you know what? I love that you put it that way. I love that you put it that way, that you would perceive it as mastery.
Hmm.
But if the DBD community as a whole has unwritten rules in the game that slugging like that is toxic and bullying, why do you view that as mastery, even though the vast majority of Survivor players would look at it as toxic and bullying? This is what I mean, is I can't figure out the difference. Because if a bunch of survivors are able to head on stun you 3 times in a row because of their coordination, and they've just really learned how to master using head on and flashbang and blastmine, or they're able to CJ tech you, or they're able to get like the perfect timing on a flashbang save, all these things that can feel super frustrating. But like, you can't just do that overnight. Like, you have to learn how to use these perks, you have to learn the timing, you have to learn how to do all these things to pull all these goofy plays off. Like, I could argue the same thing, that watching survivors do that, I could, and that's how I do feel genuinely when I have survivors do that. I'm like, dang, that's a good survivor, dang, they know how to use their perks. It is the same
Hmm.
thing. So why do you perceive one as mastery when all the other survivors, or not all, but majority of survivors, would not look at it as mastery? They look at it as toxic. But then on the
Hmm.
flip side, you don't look at it as mastery for survivors, you look at it as bullying. To me, again, it is a giant double standard that I can't wrap my head around.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I understand your point. Like what I think would say about that is, I don't think it's about killer versus survivor necessarily. It's more about like vibe versus mockery. When survivor starts like teabagging, flashlight clicking, body blocking after a match, it's basically decided. It's not strategy anymore. It's just rubbing it in. That's where it like crosses into bullying. And just like Baba can be oppressive but stylish, survivors can be flashy but still respectful. It's when they turn it into a performance of look how helpless you are kind of thing. That's when it just feels different. And I feel like if you're a survivor with like a group of people, it like group pressure also embodies this behavior more, especially with Swifts. It's not about one person doing something that's masterful. It's about a whole group that makes it especially hard for the killer to not feel this pressure from them as in the form of like bullying or in the form of like disrespectful. You know what? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I can kind of understand what you're saying, but again, we're just setting a precedent for one side and trying to ignore it for the other. Like, and we're also to use your logic there. We have to assume everybody is a Swift. When in fact you could compare solo queue to the experience of a killer. Maybe not the stress level, because I think killer is more stressful than survivor. But when you're playing solo queue and you're queuing up, and if you get tunneled out at 5 gens 3 times in a row, or you get slugged on the ground by a Bubba goes where he pleases kind of build that Epidemia would use, like that can feel really bad, and it can feel like maybe the killer is just trying to troll you or make you have a miserable experience if you want to perceive it that way. Maybe you don't perceive that as mastery. It's all about your perception. And I don't. And also, I'm a little bit confused by where you stand, because for one, you point out clicking and doing those things, body blocking, at the end of the game when the result is already decided, but that's never anything that we've talked about. I'm not talking about when the match is decided. I'm not talking about all the gens are done, the gates are open, and everybody's sitting in the gate teabagging to brag. Like, that's not what I'm talking about.
No,
But so
I do understand. I do
that's
understand, and I don't think
if
it.
if somebody
I think we
stuns
have.
you at a pallet and teabags you at 5 gens because they want you to chase, they want you to chase them, I think that is not at all the same thing as teabagging in the gate, or waiting till the last second to leave, or trying to purposely be a sore winner and say GG easy in the endgame chat. They're two vastly different things, because if someone's teabagging you because they want your attention, they want you to chase them because they are the strongest link like say it is a Swift, right? And there's only one person on the team who's good at looping. Everybody else just wants to do gens because they might go down in 30 seconds. It makes the most sense for the strong looper to try as hard as they can to get the killer's attention at all times, because that gives them their best shot at winning. Now, a killer might look at that and think that they're being bullied, but why not look at it as, wow, that's mastery. That's a survivor who has dedicated a lot of time to learning maps, to learning tiles, to learning how to mind game. That's a really good survivor, and I respect how they've mastered the craft of playing survivor. Why not look at it that way instead of looking at it as that survivor's teabagging to mock me and to say that I'm bad and to say that I want to have a miserable time? It's a double standard. If you're going to look at one as mastery, you should be able to also look at the other as mastery as well.
Mm-hmm. Let me go back to like your first point first, because otherwise I have to like respond to four at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I did hear what you say. I'm just not that good in like English, to understand.
No, by the
like
way, I
everything.
think you mentioned that your English is bad. I think your English has been fantastic this entire time. There hasn't been one single time that I haven't understood what you're saying. So I think that
Okay.
your English is phenomenal.
Okay, thank you.
I really
Thank
do.
you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Like about the Baba, I think like um when people like play the game with like style, it's cool. But when people add a layer of look at you, or like a little bit like you're a helpless loser, or whatever, that I don't think like that's skill anymore. I think like that's kind of like a vibe that
Okay, just
you've.
if I may just interject for just a second. Again,
Yeah.
because I can't. It's if you get downed at 4 gens, and how, again, you view it as mastery, but how would it not be valid for survivors to then think also that they're helpless, they can't do anything? They didn't know Bubba was going to have all of these perks and have all of these things, and maybe they accidentally got too close, and now they're slugged on the ground at 5 gens. They can't do their objective, and the match is over for them, and they barely get any points. And yeah, you could look at it as mastery. I would look at it as mastery. But the vast majority of survivors, I mean, Epidemic gets so much salt. I mean, he gets people who respect what he does, obviously. Just like I get people who laugh when I do base and Bubba all the time. But there are still a lot of people who look at it as toxic and who would feel helpless and like they can't do anything because they got downed and that's it. They can't play the game. So again, it's all about personal perception. Like you're saying that because you view it as mastery, that everybody should look at it that way, is what it seems like.
No, let me like bring you the perspective. What I wanted to say is like I do think it is valid. Like, and I think like that's exactly like the point that I was trying to make. It's like it's valid to feel bad when you're being slugged endlessly, or you're hopping on solo queue and you get slugged by a Bubba that can chainsaw everyone in just one whole swoop. Just like I think it's valid to feel bad when you're being teabagged after being outplayed. The difference that I'm talking about is like when those things are done with an added layer of humiliation, not to win, but just to mock other people. That's where people start calling it like bullying, not because the action is mechanically like unfair to me, uh, but because the intention crosses a social line.
How do you determine that intention, though? Again, if we're talking about the end of a match when the objective is already done and the survivors can just leave and they're all just teabagging you, they're all just like, yes, okay. Like, if that's the one scenario you're talking about, but again, I have to, like, what about at 5 gens? What about at 4 gens? What about at 3 gens? Like,
Mhm.
what about teabagging then? Because they want your attention, because they want chase.
I think you are right about the fact that you cannot objectively know someone's intention. I'm not here to say that you can definitely read someone's intention 100%. Uh, but I think personally, how I see it is like in human interactions, even in games, people are constantly reading context, like timing, body language, patterns. In DBD, it's just not that someone teabags. It's when how often, how they follow you, what they do like before and after. That's exactly how we tell if someone's mocking us in real life too. It's like the tone, pacing, repetition. So I don't claim to know someone's like heart or his intentions, but I feel the social tone, and so do I think many others that become angry or get frustrated or feel like they are bullied. And I don't think like that's an assumption. I think that's like interpretation.
So,
Yeah.
like, if we just want to compare two things, okay? In professional sports, if you can have two athletes on opposing sides taunting each other and talking smack within the lines of the game, not doing anything crazy that would get a penalty or an unsportsmanlike conduct, but just like everybody and like you see all the time, NBA, in NFL, you see players on opposing sides talking smack, taunting, and it's to get in your head. It's so that you'll make mistakes, so that you have a better chance of winning. And then when that match ends, both teams go out to the field, they shake hands, they hug, they go home, they go to the next game the next week. So in DBD, that's why I don't understand it. If in professional sports that can be the mindset, and they're not, nobody goes to the press conference and goes, "Yo, Michael Jordan, he was a real bully to me because he pumped his chest and he said some things to me. Michael Jordan's a real bully." Nobody does that because it's not bullying.
Hmm.
So why in Dead by Daylight when somebody in the game teabags or taunts you because they want to get in your head, they want you to chase them, they want their team to have a better chance of winning, or they know that they have a good chance of looping you. Why is it not looked at the same way? Like, that's not bullying either. They're trying
Um,
to further their chances of winning. And why can't everybody still just say GG and go to the next match?
yeah, I think you made a good point, but I think what I feel like what your point is like why it falls off a little bit is like that. Yeah, I do see your point, but I think the difference is in pro sports, both sides agree to the terms. Everyone's trained, paid, equipped, mentally prepared. They know the mind games are part of it. In Dead by Daylight solo queue, it's a casual setting. One person could be a 16-year-old just trying to unwind, like after a school day, or his parents are divorcing and he just wants to have a little bit of fun. Who knows? A lot of people play games to escape some type of things from their trauma or stress as well. Like if I pick up a basketball with friends and someone trash talks me like it's game 7 of the NBA finals, for example, that's not competitive to me at all. It's just disconnected from context.
What you're saying is that when people go to play professional sports, they know what they're signing up for, they know what they're getting into. And that exact same thing applies to online video games. When you go and you sign up and you ready up and you decide you're going to go play a game against 4 strangers or with 4 strangers on the internet, you should, especially if you're an adult or even an older teenager, you should know that you're going to go against strangers. You might get people who are going to use perks or do things or try to get in your head to make you lose, especially in a PvP game where people are trying to win and are trying to get the better of you. It is the same exact thing as going into a sports game. And by the way, in sports, people go and play things when they're traumatized too. There's people who have gone and played sports games right after they've had family members died, and then they'll score a touchdown or something and they'll break down and cry because they're thinking about their family member that just passed. Like, people deal with trauma in professional sports. They deal with trauma when they play video games. But people still play all the same, and people still want to win and still want to play the game. We can't just assume that everybody on the other side might be going through something if we want to just play the game and have fun. Again, unless your intention deep down is to make that person miserable, then yes, you are a bully. You are toxic because you have that intention. But the problem is when we're assuming people's intentions because we already feel bad, or maybe whether or not you're going through something, assuming intentions is bad. And if you play a multiplayer video game, a PvP game against strangers, you know what you're signing up for, or at least you should. I mean, my 12-year-old son plays PvP games online. He knows what he's signing up for. So it's the same thing.
I do understand your point, and I do hear what you say. In my opinion, it's like clicking ready in Dead by Daylight means I accept the mechanics of the game, not being like disrespected as a person. I agree to be outplayed, not to be humiliated. Like, PvP doesn't mean to me social norms suddenly don't exist. That's not why I play Dead by Daylight. I think Dead by Daylight is like a fantastic game. The way it's designed, it's fucking amazing. I think that's what makes the community like this so fiery about this game, because the whole concept of it is just amazing. But that also the problem with this game is also that it creates this kind of energy that players have that is like extremely competitive and sometimes just borderline disrespectful because of the skill difference sometimes. And I think that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think people are necessarily actually bullies, but I think the way the game also puts some people in this position of where being a bully is super easy to them, like just because they wanted to, because there's like no repercussions for doing so, creates this like unfair and sometimes just humiliating experience in Dead by Daylight, where it just feels like you just didn't get to unwind in that game, or in that game in general. And there could be an argument to say that maybe you shouldn't unwind in Dead by Daylight, but I think that's
the problem is you shouldn't ever do something with the intention to unwind with having unrealistic expectations. And I think that if you're trying to unwind and you're playing a game with a competitive mindset, or if maybe you're somebody who's susceptible to feeling humiliated, then to unwind you shouldn't play PvP games. If you want to unwind, you should play Skyrim, or you should play a single player RPG or something to unwind, not something where you're dealing with random people on the internet. If you're somebody who feels easily humiliated by the action somebody does in a video game, regardless of whether you know their intent or not, then that's not how you should be unwinding. And if you do want to play the game to unwind, then it's all about adjusting your mindset, because it's never going to help you unwind. If your mindset is always going to be, something happens to me in the game that I didn't like, therefore I'm being targeted and humiliated, like, that's unhealthy. That's a very unhealthy mindset. Like, and I'm not saying like it makes you bad or a bad person because you feel humiliated, but I'm saying it's a very unhealthy mindset, that if you allow yourself to feel humiliated by things that happen to you in a video game. And that's something that takes a lot of like working and healing to figure out why that happens or why that's happening to you. But I don't think that every single person that plays an online game has to be mindful of the possibility that you might be humiliated by them simply playing the game, because their intent isn't to like humiliate you unless you know it is. But if you're at a point where you feel humiliated by things happening to you in the game because you're just assuming people's intent and you're assuming their intent is to humiliate you, it's incredibly unhealthy, and you shouldn't put yourself in that position by playing PvP games. Because to that point, you're always like, you're setting yourself up to feel humiliated all the time until you can work that out and stop, like, work out how to stop feeling that way.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's like a good comparison to play like single player games or Dead by Daylight, because, like, for example, Skyrim doesn't give me social context at all. You know,
But
like, you know
but
what I
there's
mean? Like
then
Dead by Daylight does. So that's like the whole difference. It's not just playing against the code. I'm playing against people, and when the game allows for human expression, it also like opens the door for impact. From you can't say it's just a game while also defending the parts that feel personal. I just don't agree with that at all.
but the problem is that we talked about it since the beginning of this conversation, is that the line never stops. If you like, who gets to decide what is and isn't a personal action in the video game? Who gets to decide that? Like, is it being slugged? Is it teabagging at 5 gens? Is it teabagging at the gate? Is it, like, no, like, you just don't know, because you don't know what that person's intention is. All you can do is assume and make your own rules and make your own assumptions, and that's just not good or healthy, because you're setting yourself up to feel bad. And if you want to play a social interaction game, but you're easily, like, you're somebody who's easily, or you're sensitive to how people act, it might be better to play a co-op game. There's plenty of co-op multiplayer games where you'll just be on a team with somebody and you won't have to worry about another person feeling like they're bullying you, because you're playing co-op and you're still getting social interaction. But anytime you're queuing up to play a PvP game where that other person's job is to beat you or to mind game you or to try to win in whatever way, you shouldn't play those types of games if you're easily humiliated, or you feel like the other side's attacking you.
And that's where I think like our points are a little bit different in, because I feel like talking about the social line again, like where do you actually draw the line? I think that's a difficult question, and I also think the line isn't fixed. It's not like, okay, this is the line, that's it, that's where it is. I feel like uh, the line isn't necessarily fixed, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You cannot, I don't think you can like play Dead by Daylight and not feel like that there isn't some sort of line where it becomes like bullying or toxic. Like in Dead by Daylight, or in like many other PvP spaces, the line is, for me, is drawn at the point where play turns into performance at the cost of presence. Like a little bit, not by the rules, not by the spirit, not by perks, not even by design, but by the human impact that you feel after the match. You don't
But
need
but you've kind
a
of
perfect judge.
contradicted yourself a little bit, because you're talking about, like, performance versus playing efficiently, or playing, like, you're talking about like performance or boasting or whatever. But you said yourself that Epidemi specifically, whoops, sorry, I hit my mic. Epidemi specifically going for clips by downing every survivor in one sweep, you look at as a mastery. But why wouldn't you look at that as a performance instead? Because he's specifically trying to show off his ability to down everybody immediately, and everybody's experience is immediately over because he's downed every survivor. But you view that as a mastery rather than a performance. Like, that should be, by your own logic, that should be somebody trying to be performative at the expense of somebody else's online experience, right?
And I don't feel like I'm like contradicting what I'm saying. What I feel like I'm doing is I'm showing that context matters. Like
I agree.
Epidemi as a Baba is like a streamer playing no meme build with full awareness that it's heavy. I think he knows that too. People opt into that show. People watch that for that purpose. But in solo queue, people don't opt in. They don't sign up for humiliation, slug chains, or flashlight click shows. The difference isn't the tactic; it's the context, the space of play, and whether people still feel like people play within it. Do you
Right.
understand what I'm saying?
Right. So, but what I'm saying, again, but what I'm saying is, why do you view what he does as mastery and you think that that's okay when you have already acknowledge that other players would look at it as miserable and bullying.
Sorry, can you say that again?
I said, why do you look at what Epidemic does as being masterful when other people, like you mentioned solo queue, people just queuing up, not being a part of the shtick or whatever, when they would look at it potentially as bullying or being miserable? Like, who's right? You thinking it's masterful, or the person thinking it's miserable and bullying?
I think because mastery isn't just about what you do; it's about how aware you are of what your actions create. Epidemi, I think I don't know his like I've never like really watched him. Knows I think exactly what this effect with Bubba has. He owns it, he names it, probably he frames it, and he plays it as a style. Like I think that's what makes it mastery. But when a random player slugs for 4 minutes without saying anything, clicks flashlights or hovers with like no reason, it's not mastery.
So,
It's like
but that
absence of like awareness. I think that's the difference, not the action, but the depth of presence like behind someone. Like what I think like that's my point.
this Joey guy. So I'm gonna use your same logic again. The
Hmm.
Joey guy that I made a video about, the guy who uses head on, blast mine, all that stuff. That's his thing. That's it. Like, people go to his stream, all his emotes are head on emotes, and it's all based on that. And he plays with other people that do the same thing, and like all of his TikToks, everything that's his whole shtick. He has completely mastered how to use these perks as Survivor, but all these killers are in my comments calling him a bully. Now, what's the difference? Do you think that Joey is humiliating killers and that those killers are valid and feeling humiliated? Or do you think that they should look at it as mastery because that's his whole thing? Because that's your logic for Epidemi. Like, that's his whole shtick. He's mastered that. So by your logic, people should look at people like Joey on the Survivor side and have the same exact mindset. Like, he's not a bully. He's just mastered his playstyle and he's mastered his shtick, right?
Yeah, I think that's like exactly that. Like that's my point too. It's not that Joey using head on was toxic necessarily. I think it's the lack of context and the lack of mutual grounding between players. I think Joey got hate not for using head on specifically, but because his playstyle felt like it ignored others, like it was built to frustrate, not to compete.
I don't.
Like
But
when you
what is
don't.
that? But I'm sorry. I'm getting. I'm getting a little flustered because What is the difference with Epidemi then? It's the same thing. When he queues up, he's not. There's no mutual understanding. Those survivors don't know what they're signing up for. Why is it different? Why is it a mastery for Epidemi, but it's not? It's Joey not being mindful of the killers. I cannot wrap my head around it.
Um, can I? I think the difference is the fact that I think the difference is grounding. Like Epidemi frames what he's doing. He streams it with like probably with the clarity, mastery, and the tone that shows it's a challenge, not mockery. His plays have like weight behind what he's doing, and it lands with precision and awareness. I think Joey's plays didn't carry the same like signal for people. It felt random, chaotic, and not grounded in the mutual respect of mastery.
The
So
only
people
the
didn't
only
read it
but
as gameplay. They read it as like Joey saying "fuck you." That's the core. I think that's the core difference. Not the perk, but the presence behind it. I think that's the main difference.
I think you're respectfully, I think you're wrong. I think the difference is it's the us versus them, because it's not that killer players don't have a problem with what Epidemi did because they are killer players. There are plenty of survivors who hate what Epidemi does. There's plenty of survivors who hate what I do as Basement Bubba. That's why. It has nothing to do with the mastery. It has to do with the fact that that's their side and they're okay with it. Like, what about all the Survivor players that watch Joey? They think what he does is great. They love what he does. They want to replicate what he does because it's fun and they want to master these perks too, and they look at it as like Joey also streams. Joey also makes that his entire thing, and there's so many people who love it. It's specifically killer players who don't. just the same way that it's Survivor players who don't like what Epidemic does. It is exactly the same thing. The killer, how is it not?
I feel like I do hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's about killer versus survivor. I don't think the killer mains are necessarily protecting the killers and the survivor side protect the survivors. I think it's about the tone and intention about how that lands socially. You can play killer and still land like a bully, just like a survivor can. I don't think it's a role; it's a signal. You're signaling. Epidemic or epidemic or it doesn't land like that. I feel like
He
from what I
does.
can hear about
He
you,
do,
but
he
but
but he
wait,
does. But if survivors, if he constantly, like, not constantly, but he does get a lot of salty survivors. And there are many survivors out there who hate being slugged at 5 gens and hate having their whole team die at 5 gens or 4 gens. They hate it. They think it's miserable. So why is it mastery when there's so many people who think that it's miserable?
uh, I for me personally, I think it's because epidemic might carry himself with like more clarity, weight, and
Nobody
self
knows that they're
awareness.
going against him.
No,
Again,
but
nobody
it's
knows.
no. I know, but I think it's like the way he carries himself in the game. Like what does he do with his character? That plays a role too. And I don't think Joey did that as well. Not because of the perks or the role, like I think, but because the way he played felt like it spat in the face of others. I don't think it's about us versus them. I think that it's just human to human. I think you cannot compare Joey to Epidemic because they have different presences that they carry with themselves in the game.
The basic principle is the same, though. Epidemic is doing something that a lot of Survivor players inherently think is miserable because they get downed at the beginning of the game and they are not able to play the match. Like, many Survivor players will straight up report killers for that. Even though it's not reportable, they will report them for holding the game hostage because they think it's that miserable. They get downed at the start of the match and the whole team
Mhm.
dies and they cannot play the game and they think it's miserable.
I feel like, but that's exactly like what I'm pointing at too. It's like the principle may be the same, and I do feel that, but I think the presence, the tone, and the delivery are not. One lands with craft, and the other with mockery. One carries awareness of how it lands, the
Who
other hides behind the role.
who
That's
determines
why
that?
we respond differently.
Who determines what classifies as mockery? Like, who, like, why is it that when you get all get downed at 5 gens and die, that you can't feel just as humiliated as a killer who's getting stunned with head on and flashbang? Like, how can both sides not feel equally as humiliated or equally as miserable in that position? The
Mm,
only way you could deny
I
that
think
is
the
if you're
same.
like specifically favoring one side, because both sides will both feel miserable sometimes, and both, like, to deny one side is to just deny the entire logic as a whole.
I feel like the way you classified the tone, like I feel like it's the same way we classify tone in every human interaction by the how do you say that in English? Like a resonance, like the resonant, by how it lands, by how it feels. We do it like all the time. Like even outside games, we feel when something is said with love, with humor, or with disrespect. It's not a written law, but it's real.
Correct.
Mockery
So
isn't
if
just
it's
an
correct,
answer, an
so
action.
right.
It's
So if a
a,
survivor gets downed at 5 gens, slugged on the ground, they don't get to play the game. A lot of survivors don't view that as a positive thing. They view it as a very, very negative thing. They don't look at it as mastery. They don't look at it as clever. They don't look at it as anything. They report. They're mad in the endgame chat. They think it's awful. They think it's toxic. They write on behaviors forums about how slugging and camping and tunneling needs to be fixed because it's so miserable. So why does that get to be considered mastery? When that how is that survivor's feelings any less valid than a killer who was upset about getting stunned? That's what I'm not understanding, because by your logic, both of those people should be validated, because both of those people are having a miserable experience. Both of those people are following the unwritten rules that you're talking about. The unwritten rules are don't slug it 5 gens. Like they are using that logic of your unwritten rules, so both sides should be valid. But you seem to be way more validating of the killer's feelings than you are of the survivor's feelings, and I don't understand that.
I'm not trying to like be protecting one side better than the other. I say sometimes I cannot really like finish like my whole sentence about what I'm about saying, and I don't blame you for that. It's just a good conversation to have, I think. But to answer your question, I think that's like the whole point. Like the survivor side doesn't see it as mastery because they're usually like on the receiving end of it, and that's why I said it's about perception. Survivors experience it as oppressive or humiliating, not skillful. Just
Right.
like some killers don't see head on as skill, but as bullying or trolling. So
Correct.
both sides feel misunderstood,
Mm-hmm.
and that is why I think these conversations matter. It's not about who's right; it's about how how each side experiences the same thing differently.
Right, and I completely agree with you. And based on everything that you said, that's why I don't understand why you consider what Epidemi does as mastery instead of or like again, to me, you would have to say Joey and Epidemi are both like presenting mastery, or they're both presenting like humiliation and breaking the unwritten rules. Like, but to me, it seems like only Epidemi is getting the mastery card given to him because he's a killer player or whatever reason it is. But really, like if you're what we just agreed on is that both sides can feel miserable, both sides can have negative feelings that are valid in your opinion, then
Mm-hmm.
then we shouldn't be looking at it. You shouldn't look at one side as mastery and the other as bullying. Like that's if you're going to look at both sides' feelings as valid, then you can't also say that one is right and one is wrong. You have to say that they're either both right or they're both wrong.
I feel like the main difference that I'm trying to get at is that I think it's because Epidemi played with like silence and clarity. He didn't mock. He didn't posture. He didn't teabag or flashlight click. He let the game play like speak for itself. His style in general, from what I can hear from you and what I just look on YouTube a little bit, so I can be up to date, is just mastery in what he can do. He's just showing his skill off because he can do that skill. That's his style. And I think Joey didn't just play, like he performed on top of the play. He added extra signals of like the dominance that he has that weren't necessarily to win. They were to provoke or humiliate for some people, and that's the difference. Not the strategy, but the intention behind his delivery was completely different. That's why
No,
people are
that's the
upset.
problem. You just said intention. You just said intention, and that's the problem because what you just did again, and that's the issue, is you assumed intention. You can't talk about intention unless you know it. You can't talk about Joey's intention unless you know his intention. And Joey's intention isn't to make the killer miserable. It's not to humiliate them. It's to have fun and goof around. And when I play with Joey or when I do the same thing in solo queue and play goof around like that, my intention isn't to humiliate or bully anybody. It's to goof around and have a good time and use fun perks instead of meta perks. That's what I like to do. But you just talked about intention. Oh, well, Epidemi's intention is to show his mastery, while Joey's intentions are different. No, they're not. You just assumed intention again. Joey's intention is to use perks that he thinks are fun and that he's really good at using. He's really good at baiting killers into running into these perks. Like, killers aren't forced to fall for all these plays, but he's really good
Mhm, mhm,
at utilizing all of these perks. He's
mhm,
very, very
mhm.
good at it. And I've seen, you know how many players as a killer main, you know how many survivors I've seen blatantly fail head-ons and flashbangs and flashlight saves, like, because they're terrible at it.
Mhm.
Like, these things are not just free. You have to be good at using these perks. So
Yeah.
we can't just say, oh, Joey's intentions are bad. He wants to mock. No. Joey is good at using the perks that he uses. He's good at that play style. He has mastered it, and he does it. That's his shtick. He does it for fun. The same way Epidemi uses his play style for fun, and he's mastered that, even though those survivors might not be having fun.
Yeah, like I said, like I'm not trying to like belittle or put Joey down for
And I'm
that.
not
You know,
saying
I'm
you are,
just
but you did mention his intention, which like you talked about that was the difference between him and Epidemia was Joey's intentions. But how can you?
yeah,
But
yeah, and I still do think that. Let me clarify on what I meant by that. Is I cannot read Joey's inner intentions. I'm I don't know Joey personally. I don't know, but I can respond to the effect of his actions. And effect is real. I feel like Epidemy's playstyle landed as pure gameplay. Joey came with gestures, signals, performances that feels like it aims for humiliation, not just victory. Wherever Joey meant it or not, doesn't erase the impact it has on other players. That's the whole point I'm making. You
But
can
your point
disconnect
completely
gameplay
but
from.
your point completely negates the fact of the survivor experience of being miserable, being slugged at the ground at 5 gens. You keep ignoring that. You keep talking about how Joey is disregarding your feelings as not your feelings specifically, but ignoring killer feelings and all this stuff in exchange for his gameplay and his fun, but that's exactly the same for survivors. And I don't know how many times I have to say it. The vast majority of survivors in this game hate being slugged. They hate being tunneled. They hate being camped. So it is the same thing. And it should not be, one should not get a pass if the other doesn't. One should not be looked at as mockery and bullying and more performative when the other one is looked at to be just as miserable by the player that it's happening to. If the survivor feels just as miserable as the killer does in each of their own scenarios, then one cannot be less valid than the other, especially when both of them are breaching unwritten rules in the game that you talk about. Both of these things are breaching unwritten rules. You shouldn't camp and tunnel and slug, and you shouldn't troll the killer. Both unwritten rules, right? And both of them are being broken, but only one side is being validated in this conversation, and I don't get it.
Can you say your point again about what I completely negated? You said something about that my point negates the effect of whatever. I didn't really hear you because like sometimes not to judge you or anything, but sometimes like I'm trying to like say stuff and think about it, but I get like interrupted and then I lose like the points, you
No,
know.
it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
I do think we're going in circles a little bit because I don't know. We're just not landing on the same playing field of like by saying that killers are valid for feeling humiliated or bullied in those situations because what the survivors are doing, even if it's fun for the survivors, it's not fun for the killers. While on the whole flip side, saying that what Epidemic does is fine, even if the vast majority of survivors think that what he's doing is miserable from their standpoint. And while you have two sides that are both vocalizing that they're miserable or that they're humiliated or whatever it may be, one side is being validated by you and the other side is being looked at as mockery and bullying. And to me, it doesn't make any sense. I can't, like, I just, it doesn't matter about how flashy or whatever you perceive it. You perceive one side as a little bit more flashy and one side is gameplay. If both sides are frustrated and feel bullied and both sides are breaking unwritten rules, as you call them, then how are they not just, how are they not
Uh,
the same?
Let me try and say that like again. It's difficult for me maybe to explain
Mhm.
the differences because of the language barrier maybe. Um, but what I said is like uh, Epidemi plays the game, plays with the game. He plays what the game is intended to, and he plays with that. Joey plays with the same intent, but also on people. I think that's the main difference that I'm seeing when I'm hearing. Epidemi plays through mastery, with pressure, with tracking, with decision making. Joey leans on perks and uses them to perform socially dominant like clicky flashlights, teabag stunts. That's not the same. One feels like craft, the other feels like a statement. Look what I did to you, and that difference is felt, even if it's not always consciously. So I'm not saying anything that towards Joey that he's bad, but he plays with different intent, and that's the main difference. Do you get that point?
No, No, because again, you just said once again that Joey plays with different intent, which again you just assumed Joey's intent again, and they have the same intent. Their intent is to use the builds that they have mastered to have fun in the game. Sometimes the builds work and sometimes they fail, but when the builds do work, you may have the other side feeling very bad. And I don't see how it's valid for survivors to be slugged at 5 gens when the vast majority of survivors find it miserable, but a killer getting stunned by head on, that's not the same. I just we're only validating one side of the spectrum here. This whole conversation has been mostly just validating killers' feelings.
No, I don't think necessarily that's true.
We've had some good conversation.
To clarify again, it's not about Joey's intent per se. It's about the impact that his style has on the receiving end.
Right.
Even
so
if
you have to
what players feel when they're teabagged, clicked at, and head on stunned over and over is still valid.
You have to apply that to Epidemic.
I think to notice that a move lands as a taunt.
You have to apply it to
Someone
Epidemic.
Could say, just kidding, after being rude. It still felt rude. That's social reality, not just code or intent.
You have to apply that to Epidemic. Why? What about the impact that it has on the survivors? That's what we're not reaching.
You're muted. I cannot hear you. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. You were muted.
Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to mute. I didn't. But so you're talking about. No, I mean I heard what you said, but you're talking about the impact that it has on the player. There's the playstyle and there's the impact of the person on the receiving end. You only bring that up on Joey's point, and you refuse to acknowledge the impact that somebody like Epidemy's playstyle would have on a survivor, and that they would feel miserable and humiliated. You just refuse to acknowledge that because one is killer, one is survivor, and one is, in your opinion, a little bit less flashy. So therefore, all those survivors who feel miserable in that situation, like their feelings are not as valid. And I don't know. Again, it feels like at this point we're just going in circles, and I maybe at this point we just need to agree to disagree, because I think that both sides either need to be valid or not valid, and at this rate we're just not getting there. We're getting one side is valid and the other side is not, despite them doing the exact same thing, and we're going in a cycle right now.
I know. Do you really feel that we're going in a cycle? I feel like we've just you wanted to talk about Joey's side and Epidemic side as like these two opposing things, but I feel like because you have maybe like a more personal connection to the side that you're on, that you feel like I cannot disagree with how it maybe feels for Survivor.
I think it's the opposite. I think it's the opposite. I think I think you have a more personal connection with the killer side. What I am doing is I am validating both sides. So what you just described is the opposite, because what I am telling you is that both sides are valid, and what you are telling me is one side is valid. So I'm not favoring one side. I'm telling you that if you're gonna look at how a match impacts somebody when we're breaking unwritten rules and doing things that are unfun for somebody, you have to look at the impact of both sides that are affected if you want to make that argument. You are not doing that. You are only looking at the impact it has on one side, while the other side's impact is less important to you. So I don't have a bias on a side because I am 50-50 both sides right now. You are not. You are giving one side a pass as mastery and using skill and using perks, while the other side is not. While the other side,
I do feel like that's like assuming what I say or what I feel as well. I don't think that's truthful at all. Like to me, I don't think it's about being killer sided. It's just respect gameplay that expresses control, patience, and adaptation. Not the gameplay that feels like it's trying to get a rise out of people. If a survivor looped me for 5 gens with clean timing and discipline, I'd call that mastery too. It's the same thing. But spamming head-on, teabags, and flashlight clicks mid-match feels less like an adaptation and more like performance. Mastery inspires, performance provokes. And that's the difference for me, not the role.
I think that it's just to put every single to try to put everything in one box, to try to give people one single narrow path that they have to follow for something to validate as a clean playstyle or as a not provoking playstyle. Here's how you have to play the game step by step to reach your objective. If you veer off and you goof around this way, you might be toxic. If you goof around and you veer off a little bit this way, you might be toxic. There are hundreds and hundreds of perks in this game, and a lot of them do not promote actually doing your objective, or they promote doing the objective in a far more unique way. You have perks like Insidious, which I mentioned earlier in the stream before the debate. How does Insidious promote doing your objective? All it does is reward you for standing still. So in order to master that perk or to master a playstyle using Insidious, you have to play in a more unique way. You have to camp a gen. You have to camp a hook to sneak up on survivors. And using this playstyle may be frustrating, despite the fact that you're mastering a perk that people don't use very often. And there are so many perks like this on both sides that you have to go out of your way to get value out of the perk. And so basically it seems like what we're advocating for here is to just not ever do that, because you have to just follow the exact steps to reach your destination, to reach the end of a match, to reach your objective. And if you veer off and do something and get perk value, even if it may be frustrating for the other side, that's a bad thing. And I just think that's we're restricting people way too much. Like, why do perks like Head On, Flashbang, all these things, Saboteur, why do Firecrackers exist? Like, why are all of these things in the game?
And that's what I'm trying to say as well is, I don't care what your style is. I don't care why you're doing it. Style is like endless. I feel like you could create styles on top of styles. Even to this day, new styles come into play for Dead by Daylight. That's the fun part about the game. But when your moves feel like a wink to the audience, especially for streaming side, instead of a response to the match, that's when it loses me. I don't respect style because it's flashy. I respect it when it's honest.
Okay, when you're looking at things specifically from a content creator's perspective, like let's just look at content creation in general. And we can talk about this from content creation or just from a gameplay standpoint. If every single person played the exact same way and followed the same unwritten rules and used the exact perks in the exact fashion, everything would be like, where I don't want to live in that world. Like, how would anybody ever grow in content creation? How would anybody ever do anything if everybody's doing the exact same thing? Like, if everybody's just hey, I'm going to stream Dead by Daylight and I'm just going to play the game. I'm just going to use these most efficient perks and I'm going to try to win. And I'm going to just try to master the best perks that I can. And that's all I'm going to do. And that's all every streamer does. Like, why watch any of them? They're all the same. Like, that's what people, I mean, that's why Joey has found success, because he's doing something different. He's doing something fun and goofy, and he has found success. If he just does the same thing that every other, like, hey, check out, this is a really good looping build. Check it out, guys. No, like, that's boring. He thinks that's boring. He wants to do something more fun and goofy and silly and use perks that are in the game. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
And I get that. And I 100% agree. We need creative expression in Dead by Daylight. That's like one of the most important things. I think that's the reason why people watch you as a streamer a lot, or Otsdarva or Hens, because you guys bring the creativity to this game. I think that's why the game is still popular to this day, because it has good streamers. But let's not confuse creativity with provocation. Like, true mastery isn't about picking quirky perks. It's about picking moments that matter.
not everybody wants to, but you're acting like mastery is the be all end all. Not everybody cares about mastery. Some people just want to goof around and have fun. Like, it's like when Joey plays, he doesn't care if he dies. Like, maybe he'll distract the killer long enough while his teammates do gens, or maybe his teammates won't get the gens done. And either way, he doesn't care. And in a game like in an asymmetrical horror game like this, mastery is not the be all end all. We're not playing esports. We don't have to master everything. If we just want to goof around, and it's like exactly like you mentioned, people coming home from work. Like, you think someone wants to come home after an 8-hour shift, and maybe they don't want to sit down and master their killer because they don't have the hours to do that. Maybe they just want to log on and goof around and goof around with Michael Myers. Oh, I just want to go around and slap Michael Myers' butt all game because that's funny to me. That's going to give me a chuckle after my long day at work. People should be allowed to do that. People shouldn't be forced to go down the same. People shouldn't be forced to go down the same path as everybody else in terms of just, I got to master this and master that, do my objective, and then carry on to the next match. It's boring. People don't want to do that every game. And when you put too many restrictions on what can and can't feel frustrating, you're limiting that creativity. Harshly limiting it. Harshly.
And that's, I think that's like my main point as well. I don't think everyone plays for mastery, but that's literally like my exact point that I'm trying to make. Like, not everyone plays to improve or respect the space they are in, but that doesn't mean we stop talking about the effect their actions have. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, not everyone cares about mastery. Like, but that doesn't excuse playing like a clown and acting surprised when people call it out.
I think it boils down to this, and this is why we're not going to agree. Like, there are things we will agree on. We have found common ground in this conversation, but we're not going to agree wholeheartedly on everything, because I truly believe that in a video game, in any video game, and this has been my philosophy from day one, is that if you pay for the game, you bought the game, you should be able to play how you want. You shouldn't expect others to adjust their play style for your fun. That is entitlement. Expecting other people to cater to your fun, in my opinion, that's entitlement. Everybody's responsible for their own fun. If you load into a game with the mindset of somebody has to do this or not do this in order for me to have fun, that is, it by definition, entitlement. You expecting other people to do other things to appease you. And I think that is such an awful, unhealthy mindset, not just in video games, but in all of life. You shouldn't expect anything from anybody ever. If you set yourself up for that way, you're going to be disappointed a lot in life. And in online video games, of all things, you need to queue up, play your match, have a mindset of, I'm going to have fun no matter what. Maybe I'll get frustrated, but you know what? There's another person on the other end who's probably just trying to have fun too. And I'm not going to assume their intentions are awful unless they're an asshole to me afterwards in real life, in reality. Then yeah, I'll know that they were an asshole trying to make me miserable. But otherwise, I'm not going to have that mindset. I'm just going to play the game, have fun, and that's it, because it's a game and I paid for it the same way they did. And I would never dare expect another player who paid for this game to do or not do something just to please me. Because again, I'll say it again, that is entitlement right there. And I think it's so bad and unhealthy for any gaming space.
I think there's something to say about that as well. And with certain parts in what you said, I do agree with that. And what I'm saying is it's not about policing fun. It's not that you want to ruin the other person's experience because they are doing something that you don't like. It's about recognizing that in a social game, even PvP, your style of playing says something to the other people that are playing with you or against you or whatever. And sometimes it says, "I see you. I see the way you play. That's cool. Great skill, great mastery." And sometimes it says, "You don't matter. I see the way you're trying to play. You see you do your best, and I'm just gonna fuck around to show you that you don't matter in my skill game." And that's what I feel like. That's what it feels.
Yeah, and you know what? If you're loading up into a match and you're perceiving all of these things and assuming all these things based on the way that somebody's playing in a game, that is an unhealthy way to queue up and play a multiplayer game, and I will tell you with 100% certainty that if you play any multiplayer game with that expectation, you are setting yourself up to be upset. You are setting yourself up to be mad and have a negative time. The more that you are going to assume people's intentions and allow yourself to be so heavily affected and get emotional over the way somebody else plays in a video game. You enjoy the game so much more, you enjoy the experience so much more when you can let that go. And I'm not saying to not be frustrated. I get frustrated. Everybody gets frustrated. But it should never get outside of the game where you're calling people bullies, you're calling people acting like they are like treating you awful in real life. Because that's where it gets to be real silly in my opinion, and that is where I just I'll never look at it that way. I think that is beyond silly, and it's always been my mindset. That's why I play Basement Bubba. Am I aware that survivors that I go against playing Basement Bubba might have a miserable time because they never leave the basement? Yes, I'm aware of that. That doesn't mean I'm doing it to make them miserable. I'm doing it because it's fun for me. The same way Epidemi slugs everybody at 5 gens because it's fun for him. The same way that anybody does anything in the game because it's fun for them. There's not the intention to make people miserable. Maybe we are disregarding other people's feelings by doing it, but that's just the way it is in online video games because you can't follow every unwritten rule. So the way I look at it is it's either you follow them all or you follow none of them. And it's impossible to follow them all, right? It's impossible to follow every unwritten rule. So I say, fuck it. Let's follow none. That's the way I look at it. Let's follow none of them. Let's all do whatever we want in the video game. As soon as it gets outside of the video game and people are being terrible or being rude, yes, I draw the line there. But when it's in the game, I don't have any lines. I don't have any rules because there would be way too many to follow. There would be way too many to follow. The list would never end. And that's just it's just not a good mindset to have when you're playing online video games.
I mean, like, you're treating it a little bit, not to put you in the weird spot, but you're treating it a little bit like there's only two choices: full chaos or full control. But most of us live in the middle. We feel the space. We adjust. We respect. That's not weakness. That's social intelligence.
I don't understand what you mean by that. I'm not
Choosing nothing is still a choice that affects others. You're playing a social game. You're socializing with others in that game, even if you want it, yes or no. You don't escape the social game by opting out. You just stop taking responsibility for your side of it.
To me, it doesn't make sense to follow some unwritten rules but to disregard others, because then where does it end? I'm saying these people with these unwritten rules, their feelings are not valid. Your feelings aren't valid, your unwritten rules are wrong. But these unwritten rules over here, I can get down with these unwritten rules. I'm going to follow these every game I play. So then I'm disregarding the feelings of some while taking into account the feelings of these others. So again, it's either you have to follow them all and be mindful of everybody's feelings, or you can just not care about all these unwritten rules and just play the game and expect the same from everybody else. Because again,
and I think that's exactly how human interaction works. Like, we don't follow all unwritten rules blindly. We sense that what fits in the moment. You
but
already
who's to
do
say
that
that?
in life too, because you already do that in life too. Everybody does that. Wherever it's being polite to a waiter or not screaming on a bus, you don't follow everything. You follow enough to keep the space human, and that should be the same thing that you do in online games or on the bus.
I disagree. I don't think you should compare an interaction on the bus to an online PvP game where you are competing to win against another person. We cannot keep comparing these things because they are not the same. When you're riding the bus with somebody, you don't have an objective. You're not against anybody on that bus. You don't have perks that you're using against these people on the bus. Like, we cannot compare. Just because they're both technically social settings does not mean that we can compare them in the same and act like, oh, you have to act a certain way in both of these scenarios. Like, I have to play Dead by Daylight the same way that I would act while riding on a bus. I think we've lost it a little bit. And
No, I do understand the difference. I understand the difference completely. But even in online PvP games, it's still so being social is, in my opinion, there's still like sociality in the game. It's not an offline arcade against an AI, for example. There are real people behind there with triggers, with emotions, with feelings. Games aren't ethical free zones. They are a mirror on how we perceive power and dominance and respect in a shared room. It's like connected. Those things are connected. It's not like it's a free pass for everything. Otherwise, I can say the worst things to everyone online because there's no rules at all. I can say things that really hurt other people as well. But that's not the way those rules are.
No.
It's just not how it is.
No. We're just all we're doing, and this is why we're not going to agree. I said this earlier, is we're getting back to comparing the video game to reality. What you're doing is you're saying, "Oh, I can just get on here and say whatever I want. I can call people slurs. I can call people to tell people to off themselves because right, there's no limit, right? We're in a social space. I could do whatever." No, because what we're doing is we're separating the video game from reality. Using head on a killer is not the same as telling someone to off themselves in real life. Slugging a survivor on the ground at 5 gens is not the same thing as calling someone a piece of shit or going to into their chat or going into their Twitch chat after a match and saying, haha, you suck. It is not like we cannot. It's such a dangerous place to go when we go and like, yeah, if we can use head on, then I might as well just be able to say all the worst things in the world. Like we cannot put these things on the same playing field. We cannot. And that's why I refuse to call these in-game things bullying, because actual bullying exists. Actual bullying exists in real life. So no, I'm not gonna concede to these in-game playstyles being bullied.
I do feel that. I do agree with you on certain parts. Like I'm not saying video games are reality. I'm saying that they reflect reality, especially in social behavior.
If you are going to
just
compare
like jokes,
Playstyles,
memes,
no,
online.
You lost me as soon as you said, you know what? I should just be able to. Then I should just, I could go in and say whatever I want. I could say the most awful things. As soon as you go there, man, you lost me. Because this whole time, all we've been talking about is playstyles and perks in the game and intent and how things are perceived. And as soon as you went there, like, you know what? I might as well just say whatever I want to people. That's when you know. To me, that's when you know that the it's blurry. Differentiating between game and reality, it's a little blurry, and I'm not there. I've always differentiated the two. And I cannot blur, and that's why I said you and I, we're just not gonna agree, because I don't mean this in any disrespect. For you, it's blurry. For you, video game and reality, it blends together a little bit. It's blurry. We're thinking about saying awful things and putting perks and playstyles in that same category. You already did that. I'm so far out of that. There's no way that I could ever be in that ballpark. Since day one on this channel, on my YouTube channel, play the game how you want. Bully squads, not a thing. It's not bullying. Basement Bubba, camping, tunneling, slugging, nope, not. It's totally fine. Do it. It's a play style in the game, because it's not real life. And I won't go there. I won't go there. And that's why we can just disagree, man. I'm perfectly fine disagreeing, and we can just leave it there. We've reached that point, I think.
And I don't think disagreeing is necessarily bad. I think these conversations need to be held.
I agree.
I also think that is interesting, because what you've been saying, that's exactly what that's what you said to me. I feel like that's exactly what you've been saying this whole time. That people should be able to play how they want without being judged for it, without following social norms they didn't agree to. So maybe you didn't lose me. You just heard your own statements or own stance reflected back at you.
What do you mean? What do you mean I heard my own stance? How so? What is my stance? What do you mean? You lost me when you compared saying whatever you want in the game to playstyles in the game. That's when you lost me. What did I say that reflected that?
What I meant is this. You said I lost you when I said people can do whatever they want, right? But that's the core of your own point.
In the
That in
game.
PvP games,
In the game.
like yeah, I know that in PvP games like DBD, players shouldn't be judged for how they choose to play, even if it annoys or upsets others. So when I said people can do whatever they want, I was just holding up a mirror to your own logic. That's why I said it. Maybe I didn't lose you. Maybe you just heard yourself in what I said.
What is the mirror? What are you talking about? Are you talking about people saying things and actually insulting you? Or what? I don't understand what you're saying.
I'm mirroring your own statement against you.
When have
You
I
said
when have
you
I
said you either have no rules or you have all the rules.
No, but it's not. But my rules are.
But that is what you said. That's what I'm reflecting back to you.
It only reflects on me if I think video games are the same thing as reality. It only reflects on me if I actually compare saying mean things to playing the game. That doesn't reflect on me because that's not my belief. That's your belief. That is not my belief. I think everything within the game, yes, you should be able to do that within the game because it's not the same thing as saying horrific things to people. So you didn't hold up a mirror because that's not my belief. How is it a mirror? Playing however you want in the game is not saying awful things to people. That's not playing the game. That's real life.
But that's the whole point I was making from the start. Games don't exist outside of people. We bring our norms, our emotions, our pain, our joy, call it whatever, all of it, into every PvP match we play. You say, don't mix reality with games. But it's people who play games. We're not playing against AI, not robots. So if someone gets hurt by how others behave inside the game, it's still real. It's not about assuming intentions, it's about seeing the impact of repeated behavior in social spaces, even digital ones. That's not mixing reality with games, that is reality expressed through games. There's a big difference between those.
What you're
And you
saying,
say that my line is blurry, but it's not blurry. I'm trying to explain to you what the difference is, but I
you
feel
have
like
already spoken
you're
against
trying.
what you've said. You've already spoken against what you've said. You've already
What did I say?
what you just told me was if somebody has an experience in a social thing, that's real. That's totally real. But earlier you said if a survivor gets slugged on the ground by a masterful Bubba, then that's mastery. Like you said that earlier. It's mastery. So which is it? Is it the survivor's feelings are valid, or should they respect the mastery? You see what I'm not understanding. Like, this is the problem with unwritten rules, is there's so many. Again, we're going in circles. We're going in circles. Yes, yes.
No,
Just because
just hold on a second.
just because human beings play video games doesn't mean that how they interact in the real world equates to how they interact within pixels. When you play a video game like Dead by Daylight, for example, where you're playing a killer literally murdering people, like you are role-playing as serial killers, you do not have to treat those players like you would treat somebody on the bus in that match, in the pixels. You don't have to do that. You shouldn't be expected to do that. That is absolutely absurd to expect someone to treat you that way. When the match is over, when the match is over, and when you speak to somebody else and you talk to them from human being to human being, not interpreting through pixels, not interpreting through gameplay, actually talking to people, that's real life, not the game. That is the difference.
And I agree. Games aren't like one-to-one with real life. Like you don't murder anyone on a bus. Of course you don't do that. But you can decide whether you shove someone aside or hold the door open. That's the difference.
That's not. You can't compare that to a PvP game. You can't compare bus etiquette to playing a PvP game online. I can't. Listen, man. I do appreciate you taking the time. I think we've had some productive conversation. I think there have been times we agreed. I have to You've lost me, man. I cannot compare etiquette on the bus to how we act in a PvP game.
But don't you think that both are social spaces? Do you not think that that's like the same thing, the social spaces thing?
It doesn't. You're there for different reasons. We can't compare every single social space like it's the same thing and like the same etiquette is, like that's like saying, oh, if I go to a high-end restaurant, right? There's different etiquette expected of you in a high-end restaurant versus if I go to
Exactly.
McDonald's
Exactly.
or if I go to a trampoline park where people are jumping around screaming, or how about this?
Exactly.
If I go to the library, am I gonna act the same as I would act in the park? No. There's different etiquette in different places. And in an online PvP game, all of that real life etiquette is not there because it's a video game. You compare online social interactions to online social interactions. You compare real life social interactions to real life social interactions. Once you start combining the two, you blur the line between reality and video game. And just because there's real people playing the video game doesn't mean that what happens in the pixelated fake world doesn't make that real. Doesn't mean you can't be frustrated, but it's not real. And we can't compare that to being on the bus.
And I hear you, and I think that for a huge part that is true. But just because real life etiquette can fall away online, doesn't mean that it should fall away online. When we're in a PvP space, we're still humans behind screens playing. And humans feel, even in games. You don't need to roleplay politeness, but pretending feelings don't exist just because it's a game. That's where a lot of toxicity grows. That's where the major arguments are. That's why there's this whole. That's why we're having this whole argument, because one side doesn't agree with the fact that it should be there, and the other side still sees the effect on it, which it has on people. It's never going to be perfect. I'm not saying that this whole scenario is going to be fixed because you can talk about it, but there should be people talking about this, because you cannot deny that DBD is one of the most toxic games you can play in a social setting. That's the whole issue. That's why I say, you say you lose me there, but I say that's where the conversation actually starts, because that's the point where view growth in game, view growth in social norms can go to much better places than just sticking to, oh, this has worked for what it is and this is just what we will do, because that leaves room for no communication. That leaves room for everybody to just shit on everybody. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you are having fun. That's not how that's not how things socially work. Has never worked before.
Let me explain something.
Hmm.
Toxicity in this game's community will forever exist as long as people continue to make unwritten rules and continue to be upset when they are broken. Do you want to know how you would fix toxicity in this game? It would be imagine if every single person had the mindset of, I'm just going to play this match however I feel like playing today, and the other side's going to play their match how they feel like playing today, and when the match is over, I'm going to go to the next one. If everybody played that way, there would be no toxicity. Maybe not no toxicity, but there would be 80-90% less toxicity. The more unwritten rules you add to the game, the more expectation you add, the more entitlement that you add into every match, and your expectation for those other strangers, the more you are setting the game up and the community up for toxicity. And it's always going to be that way. So
I get that. I get that. But here's the paradox as well. If everyone plays only for themselves, nobody's really playing with each other anymore. Toxicity doesn't just come from intent, it grows in the gap where mutual awareness disappears. You don't have to follow everyone's unwritten rules, but when no one does, what's left is just noise, not a game. That's why this game is slowly losing its values.
I
Because
disagree. I think the more entitlement that comes to the game, and it is growing every day, the more entitlement that grows, I think that is what ruins the game, and that's what continues to ruin the community. And if everybody could just collectively agree on the fact that we're all here to just play a game, and whatever, like, some people want to sweat at 5 gens, some people don't care, some people want to goof around and troll, some people want to gen rush, some people want to play with friends, some people want to play solo. Like, there's way too many variables in this game, there's way too many perks, there's way too many playstyles. Like, there's way too much happening in this game to try and follow not only the rules in the game, but also a laundry list of unwritten rules. And that list of rules grows every day, and the more that it grows, the more that people get shamed for how they play, and people think that it's okay to treat them like shit in real life because they broke their sacred unwritten video game rule. The more unwritten rules you have, the more likely you are to have people getting mad outside of the game and threatening people, telling them to off themselves, making fun of their appearance because they feel hurt by the fact that their unwritten rules were broken. So if you just get rid of the unwritten rules and let's all just have a darn good time, then we're not going after each other personally after every match constantly. Because whoops, I forgot to follow that unwritten rule. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me that we can't just play the game. And I'm not saying that you can't not be upset or not be frustrated after a match. I can't stress that enough. I get frustrated too. But I refuse to get behind this calling people bullies and patronizing people in real life because of how they decided to play a game. I think that opens up so many doors for people to pick and choose what play styles they hate and they don't. They get to pick and choose which unwritten rules they like or don't like. And then they get to patronize people in real life because their favorite unwritten rule was broken. That is an incredibly dangerous and irresponsible way to handle any social interaction, whether it be in real life or in a video game or whatever. It's incredibly irresponsible to judge everything based off of unwritten rules that you have to follow. Otherwise, you're allowed to be patronized. You're allowed to be called a bully. You're allowed to be called slurs. You're allowed to be told to off yourself because you broke this unwritten rule. It's absolutely absurd. And this game and every online multiplayer game in the entire world would be better off with 0 unwritten rules. 0.
Well, I think like saying that people will need to off themselves because they didn't follow social rules online. That's like the other extreme side of the perspective, which I don't agree with. I don't agree with extremity whatsoever. Let me get that straight. It's not about creating the most extreme, uninhabitable rules that make people not having fun anymore. But like I said, isn't everything personal the moment humans play something together? Wherever it's PvP or real life, emotions, intentions, responses are always present. You can't separate emotions from interactions because players are people too. Removing unwritten rules doesn't remove emotion. It removes the shared language that we use to navigate emotions. To say,
I disagree.
Hey,
I disagree.
but wait. Hey, this felt off, or this crossed the line. Without that shared language, we stop acknowledging each other. And when we stop doing that, the game stops being mutual. It just becomes you do you until someone breaks. And that doesn't feel like playing anymore.
I disagree. I think if you remove the unwritten rules, you remove the unrealistic expectations that other people should follow your unwritten rules. Because it is an unrealistic expectation. You're playing with thousands and thousands of strangers. And for you or me or anybody else to have their own set of unwritten rules, and if you break those rules, you're a toxic bully, that is a dangerous, unhealthy way to play any game or to be in any social setting, because you don't know which rules to follow, you don't know which rules to not, and you're setting up yourself to be disappointed by making all these unwritten rules for yourself to be crushed in the game. So you're better off not having unwritten rules. I'm not saying you don't have to have any etiquette. Like, if I have 3 survivors disconnect, like, oh yeah, you know what, I'm gonna give that last survivor hatch because all their team. I'm not saying like you can't fucking be nice if you want to, but I'm saying there shouldn't be rules, unwritten rules that you have to follow, and if you don't, you're a bully. That's ridiculous. Everybody,
Well,
there doesn't have to
it's
be.
not
Here's the
your
thing.
bully.
Here's the thing. There doesn't have to be rules in order for people to be mindful now and then if they choose to. But it's about the expectation. You know what? If somebody wants to give you a hatch because your whole team gave up, hey, that was nice. But I'm not going to expect that. I'm not going to expect the killer to do that. You know what? If they decide to kill me because they wanted the extra kill, that's fine. Would it have been really nice for them to give me a hatch? Absolutely. But it's about that expectation. It's about that unwritten rule. And the minute that I get that expectation in my head and I start to expect that from the other player, the moment I set myself up for disappointment, I set myself up to get angry. I set myself up to want to tell that person, hey, you're an asshole for doing that, man. So get rid of the rule, get rid of the expectation, and just play the game and have fun.
I hear you. I hear what you say, what you're trying to say. I do see like the what your whole point about how you see it. I see that you thought this like all the way through, and I'm not saying that it's a bad take. I'm just saying it's not. It doesn't have any longevity in it at all. That's how, in my opinion, how games do die. Like the moment you say just play how you want and remove all social context, we're not protecting freedom, and which is the most important part of the game. We're removing accountability. That's what we're doing. If someone feels bullied, that experience is real, even if it wasn't the intent. It doesn't mean we excuse. It means we open a space to say, "Hey, something about this felt off. Can we talk about it?" Without that space, the only rule left is silence. And silence isn't fairness, it's avoidance. So, no, I'm not asking for fragile feelings to dictate gameplay. I'm asking for the possibility that how we act in a game can still carry weight because real people are playing the game.
I'm not saying that real people aren't or that people's feelings aren't being hurt when things happen. And I'm not saying that those feelings are invalid, but everybody has their own feelings and everybody gets, emotional over different things. So what I'm saying is not that you're not allowed to feel those things, but that you shouldn't take those feelings and project that onto somebody else after the match in real life and call them a bully, call them a toxic person, all that stuff. I'm not saying your feelings are invalid. We all get frustrated, but we can't take it to that level. I don't think we take it to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you take it to that level off of one unwritten rule, then you have to take it to that level. You're forced to take it to that level for every unwritten rule. Otherwise, you're inconsistent and you're a hypocrite.
And I agree with you. Like, we should never go after people in real life for what happens in a game. That is definitely a no-go zone. That's something that you should just not do. But acknowledging hurt doesn't mean attacking someone. It just means allowing space for someone to say, "Hey, this landed hard for me, even if you didn't mean it that way."
I don't think
That's not
anybody
punishment.
I don't think
That's
anybody has a
just how
problem with
humanity.
that. I mean, I don't have any problem with people having feelings or vocalizing, oh man, I didn't like that. That wasn't fun. Like, that's never been the argument. I've said repeatedly that people can get frustrated. I get frustrated. Like, that's not the argument. But the argument is that people then should, in turn, stop playing certain ways or stop doing certain things based on those unwritten rules, and I disagree. I think if people have feelings, they're allowed to have those feelings, and then they go to the next match. The answer isn't dictating what every player does or policing how everybody plays based on a laundry list of unwritten rules, because the list never ends. And you're always going to wind up breaking one, even if you don't realize it. I feel so bad. You know how bad I feel for new players who come to this game? Oh my God, I'm going to play Dead by Daylight, and it's this really cool game where you get to be Michael Myers. And I get to go,
Yeah.
I get to go kill people, only to find out your DMs get filled with people yelling at you for killing them. Like, that only happens because we allowed all of these ridiculous unwritten rules to take place and to be normalized. Now
Hmm.
we have all these new players getting pushed out. That's why people complain about this community, because people cry all the time about Playstyles. God, I feel so bad for people who come to this game trying to be Michael Myers, and then they get scared away because people can't handle getting killed by the killer. It is pathetic.
Yeah, but I think that's the most fun part of the game. Like, if you have not played this game, like for example, like me, like a lot, every time I see the killer, I still get my adrenaline rushing in real life because it feels real to me. that he is chasing me, because it's still a new experience.
But
So
what does that have to do with
I
what I just said though? Like,
let me get to that. Like, and I appreciate the fact that you're open to having people having those feelings, and I'm not saying that you don't, but I'm also not asking for a laundry list of do's and don'ts. It's not about control. I'm not talking about controlling. I'm talking about awareness. The moment we forget that there's a person behind the screen, we start treating PvP like it's just pixels. But you and I both know that is not true. It's still communication, still social space. So for me, it's not about enforcing rules, it's about not ghosting the human on the other side.
how do we be aware of all of? But you're saying be aware. It's impossible. If unwritten rules are allowed to exist, then theoretically there are an infinite number of them because everybody has different expectations. It is impossible to be aware of all of these unwritten rules.
I
You're
think
going to
being
break
aware
them.
I think by being aware, it just starts off by staying open to context. By realizing not everyone experiences the same actions the same way. Being aware doesn't mean walking on eggshells. It just means remembering that PvP still happens between people. You can still play your style, but if someone says, "This really got to me," awareness is simply listening without mocking it. That's it. Awareness isn't censorship, it's like maturity. And
I
like,
don't the only time that I will mock somebody is if their response if someone got camped or tunneled or head on stunned and they were like, "Oh man, like God, I had such a miserable game that felt so bad." I would never mock that person. But the second that that person jumps and goes, "Wow, you're a toxic piece of shit," or "You're a bully," or "Joey's a bully," I'm gonna mock you. I'm gonna mock you because that's pathetic. If you want to be mature about your feelings and be mature about how you felt, absolutely. We can do that all day. Got no problem with that. The minute you start hurling personal insults because of what happened to you in a video game, you lost me. And the minute we're going to justify that because of video game feelings being valid, we're going to justify how we talk to each other in real life, you lost me there too. And my channel, I got countless salt videos that
I
that
don't,
that
I've
showcase,
seen them.
yeah, that are people losing their minds over games. Do I mock them a bit? Yes, because they're acting absolutely ridiculous. If any of those survivors or killers had just said, "Man, I had a really rough match. Like I really didn't enjoy myself. I really felt XYZ," that wouldn't be a video. That
But
wouldn't.
listen, and I think this is like the main point that I'm trying to get is like, but you're still deciding what counts as toxic based on your standards. And that's exactly what I meant with social norms. You're not ruleless, you're following your own internal code, just not the same one as mine. So the question isn't, do social rules exist? It's, whose social rules do we respect? Because everybody likes the underdog. Everybody likes the fact that you get bullied, and at the end of the game you slugged them, killed them, or made them aware of that they were trying to bully you. That's one. Or you talk about other people doing the extreme to another side, so you're protecting the space. That's why I don't dislike you as a streamer. I actually think you're a very good streamer, especially for this game. I think you're a good person as well. I just think that this conversation needs to be held, and the fact that you wanted to talk with me says to me that you are open about this possibility, or that at least this conversation.
But and I appreciate that, and I do love having these conversations. And what you said about I have my opinion on what constitutes as toxic and what doesn't. You are right. I'm not saying that
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
opinion about toxicity is objectively true. Of course it's not. I do have my opinions. If somebody wants to say that camping, tunneling, head-on, flashlight saves, or teabagging, if say that that's toxic, they're allowed to have that opinion. Like I'm not saying.
Hmm.
Of course, we are having different opinions, and that's why I said that we just. I've mentioned it a couple times that we like. There's certain things that we just have to agree to disagree on,
Hmm.
because, yeah, I think the word toxic should be reserved for things that are more real, like as in terms of like I don't like the idea of calling, you know, real insults like, mocking someone's appearance, viewer shaming, telling someone to off themselves, calling people slurs. I don't like the idea of calling that toxic and then calling camping toxic. Because to me, it at least feels like we're putting two things in the same category when they shouldn't be. They should be leagues and leagues away from one another. And I think a word like toxic should be reserved for things that are a little bit more extreme like that. And that's just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying that's how I view it. So I don't view Playstyles as toxic. I truly don't. And again, if we want to agree to disagree on that, then we can. I specifically reserve that word toxic for the more extreme things because I don't like to group them together. That's just
Hmm.
that's just
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
philosophy. I
And
hate putting those things in the same bucket.
yeah, and I think that's the mirror. That's the mirror that I'm talking about. Is you don't like calling someone a bully because it might unfairly mark them as a bad person. I get that, and I respect that. But I don't like being treated in ways that feel like bullying, and then being told it's just a game. That's disconnect. That's the pain that I'm experiencing. That's the main part of it. I'm not saying we ban anything. I'm saying we recognize that not everyone plays for the same emotional place. And that deserves space too. That's what I'm advocating for, honestly.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't see the mirror. I don't see the comparison. I don't see what we're I don't see it, man. I mean, I don't what is the mirror? What is it that I'm saying that you are showing back to me that is contradict because by saying you're holding up a mirror, you're kind of saying that I'm contradicting myself, right? So can you say the two things that are contradicting like
It's all right if the mirror feels unclear. Like, all I meant is to say you protect people from being unfairly labeled as toxic. I try to protect people from being unfairly treated like they don't matter. The same energy, different sides of the field.
I don't think it's a matter of treating people like they don't matter though. I don't think
But
that's
I think that's like in the whole conversation. I feel like that's like
okay.
part of what it is. Like, the structure of how it is, how it can feel. Otherwise, people won't say it.
Okay.
I feel
Well,
like emotions don't come out of the blue and just say that because of without any context. Because it's not only children that are saying it. It's actually grown up people that saying it. Feels like bullying.
yeah. Okay. I we have to just this will be a never-ending cycle, man. We got to I think we got to
I think we actually got pretty far.
No, I
I think
agree. I think again, I really appreciate you coming in here. I really do appreciate it. Like you're very articulate, you're very smart, and you're also very like respectful, and I appreciate that.
thank you. Thank you.
We don't agree on everything, and that's okay. I still think conversations like this are good to have. But yeah, I,
Yeah, and I think I respect that. Like, we come from different truths, but we both showed up and we both cared, and I think that's more than most people ever will do. So I definitely appreciate the talk. I'm sorry to the chat if this took a little bit longer than it should be, but I do think it's like interesting that you saw the way I was commenting and that you were open and ready to have that discussion. It shows true character, and that's something that you definitely have. I,
I
I, I I definitely appreciate that fact about you. You definitely made my day a lot better just by being this open to me as well. Because for me, it's like this is like new to talk in front of so many people, especially with someone that I like. I like watching someone like you. So don't let this like be something that I won't let this be something that is as to end negative or in confusion. I really appreciate the talk, man. Really appreciate it.
I am in the same boat. I really appreciate it too, and I do apologize if there were times where it sounded like I was flustered. A lot of that doesn't have anything to do with you or this conversation. I think this conversation was great. It more so just has to do with just a lot of the comments I've been reading, a lot of the more aggressive, more kind of accusatory comments that I've been getting about this whole topic, and trying to find ways to articulate how I want to say it. And I know that there's probably times where I seemed flustered, but it wasn't like just specifically with you. And I do really appreciate you taking the time. And maybe down the road on another debate night or something, we can have another conversation and keep the conversation going. Because
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I think it's interesting. I think it's definitely interesting conversation, and I think you're definitely the right person to have this conversation with. If being flustered is no problem. Like that's why I'm saying like emotions definitely matter. And I know what you're experiencing, especially with your friend Joey and stuff. It's so uncalled for, and it feels unfair. It feels bad for you too. So I do understand if maybe my point comes from the other perspective, like I'm from the other side, but I'm just trying to show the perspective where I feel like you are open for, and just trying to get to like a door that we can both walk through, that makes the community and the game just a little bit better.
Yeah, I think intentions are pure on both sides, even if we don't see eye to eye on everything. At the end of the day, we do want the game and the community to be in a better place. So the end goal is the same, and the more people I think that can have respectful conversations like this, even if they heavily disagree or even if they don't see eye to eye, the more respectful conversations that can be had without throwing insults or without all these things, like that's how you take steps towards the right path. So hopefully hopefully more people can have conversations like this as well.
Definitely, definitely, and it's an exciting conversation for me. It's cool to talk about that type of stuff, especially with people that know what to talk about. So thank you. I appreciate your time. I
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
Chat for also listening. Have a good stream. I will be probably like hanging around a little bit too. But yeah, thank you for your time again, man. Appreciate it, and I wish you a good stream further, man.
Thank you very much for taking the time as well. And the one thing I'll ask of you is to stop saying that your English is bad, because again, your English is fantastic. Your English is seriously fantastic. There wasn't a single time this entire 2 hours that I didn't understand you. So I think you just need to. I think you need to accept the fact that your English is good, man.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I was a bit scared to talk in front of so many people, so I
I
didn't
think
want
you
to
did.
sound like this. Because I'm Dutch, you know. I'm from the Netherlands, so it's like the second language for
You
me.
have this entire time articulated yourself it's so well. So I mean, I think you got it. I think you got English down personally.
Thank you, man. Thank you, thank you.
All right, you have a good rest of your day, man.
Yeah, you too, man. A good stream.
All right, bye. Oh, what a nice guy. See, that's what I like, man. It's like there were some things that me and him strongly disagreed on, right? But did we ever hurl insults? Did we ever make it personal? Did we ever go after each other? Did we ever nah, this is what I mean. We got to have more conversations like this. Like, think about it with Joey, for example, right? If people saw what he was doing and they went to his chat and were like, "Hey man, did you ever think this could be viewed as this?" Joey's not going to be like, "Fuck you." No. Joey would just be like, "Oh man, no, I could see how you mean that. I could see how it seems that way, but I'm just trying to have fun." Joey would just nicely express his side, and then there would be that conversation. So what I don't like is just the way people immediately jump in and start insulting Joey or insulting anybody on Killer or Survivor's side and personally attacking them without trying to get to that understanding first. Because once you can maybe get to know somebody or get to know their intentions or get to know what they're about, you're probably going to pull back and you might not want to personally insult them. That's what I wish. More conversations like this instead of just jumping straight to insults is exactly what the community needs. That was a long-ass debate / conversation, but I'm glad we did it.